All right, picture this. It's eastern Ukraine, specifically along the Propotsk axis. A totally textbook assault is getting underway. You've got a Russian rifle company aggressively pushing forward toward what their commander was briefed on as a, pretty lightly held Ukrainian platoon position. But there is a massive, terrifying catch here that absolutely no one on the attacking side realizes just yet. The defenders in those firing pits up ahead, well, they've been watching this entire approach on thermal since the attackers crossed the start line, and not a single one of those defenders has a pulse.
So it's 0547 local time. The morning fog is super thick out there, which is providing what these 30 Russian dismounts and their 2 heavily armed BMPs think is just the perfect cover. They pour out of their transports, AKs at the low ready, and they start bounding forward toward the tree line. Now, the fog actually covers them for about 250 meters. But here's the thing. Fog literally means nothing to a thermal optic, and it really doesn't matter to a machine that has never felt fear.
What happens next is just a total shock. At exactly 250 meters, the first tracer rounds arrive. We're talking 4 rounds of 50 caliber fire in half a second, ripping across that skirmish line at waist height like a sideways jackhammer. Dirt is just geysering up. The squad hits the dirt in 3 seconds flat. And the crazy part? There's no muzzle smoke. There's no silhouette to aim at. It is just perfect, relentless fire. When the Russian platoon sergeant rises to wave his men forward, the weapon pivots on him the exact instant he moves. Which leads to this wild realization from the Russian company commander, who's looking at his tactical display just 25 seconds into contact. He says, quote, "Whatever is shooting at us is reading movement faster than a human can."
Which brings us to Section 1, the Ghost Trench. So roughly 9 football fields behind that firing pit, down in a reinforced bunker cut 30 feet into the dirt, is a Ukrainian operator named Kovalenko. He's just sipping cold coffee, rolls his shoulders, bumps his joystick, and quietly shifts his crosshairs onto the next target. Meet the asset he's controlling, the droid TW-127, call sign Hornet. This thing is a 1.1-ton tracked chassis. Think something about the size of a riding lawnmower, but it's mounting a classic 1933 design American Browning M2 .50 caliber heavy machine gun. But here is the real kicker. It's driven by an AI ballistic computer. It solves lead, drift, drop, and range way faster than a human can even blink. We're talking 400 trajectory adjustments a second. It's kind of like autocorrect, but for bullets. The AI flags targets the instant a single pixel moves on its thermal optic. It doesn't flinch, doesn't need a break, and crucially for the guys pinned down in the mud, it doesn't have a head you can shoot at. This whole 10-kilometer stretch of the Provosk front, yeah, it's become the first fully robotic sector in modern warfare. Moving right along the Section 2, armor meets the swarm.
Okay, so the Russian commander sees his platoon just eating dirt from 2 interlocking Hornet positions, and he decides he has to escalate. He orders his lead BMP gunner to put their 30mm autocannon onto Hornet 1's pit from 600 meters away, which totally outranges the droid's .50 cal. The autocannon starts walking these bursts across the tree line at 10 rounds a second. Kovalenko, the operator in the bunker, has mere seconds to react. And he does it by deploying the Rattle SK, call sign Spike. The Ukrainians actually nicknamed this thing the Honey Badger. It's a 60-kilo, 4-wheeled, totally silent electric robot. Top speed, 24 kilometers an hour. I mean, it honestly looks like a car battery duct taped to a shopping cart, but its payload is 14 kilograms of TNT. Spike 1 crosses 280 meters of broken ground in just 56 seconds. The Russian BMP gunner never even sees this pizza delivery driver of the apocalypse rolling up at his 6 o'clock. The detonation violently punches the back half of that BMP into the next field.
Desperate now, the Russian commander pushes his second BMP forward through the smoke. In response, the Ukrainians roll out a really brilliant tactical evolution, a fiber optic FPV drone, call sign WASP. Now, unlike your traditional radio FPV drones, which are super vulnerable to the Russian Chipovnik Aerojammer, the WASP unspools this hair-thin glass cable right behind it, kind of like a kite string. It carries all the video and controls its pulses of light at 200,000 kilometers per second. Trying to jam this with radio waves is basically like trying to stop someone's flashlight by shouting at it. It just doesn't work. The WASP screams in at 120 kilometers an hour, turns into a molten cup or spear, and punches clean through the second BMP's turret ring.
And when you look at the economics of this new style of warfare, the math is just staggering. 2 Russian BMP-2s costing roughly $3 million, gone. The cost to Ukraine? One $16,000 Spike ground drone and one $1,200 WASP drone. This is a brutal David versus Goliath reality, where multi-million-dollar armor is just being systematically dismantled by cheap, disposable robotics.
To really put this ferocity into perspective, let's look at the timeline. From the absolute moment the first piece of Russian armor opened fire on the Hornet droid to the moment the second BMP was completely taken off the board, exactly 4 minutes elapsed. 4 minutes! That is all it took to lose your entire armored support.
So the Russian commander tries a flanking maneuver he's been holding in reserve. 14 Russian motorcycles just sprint down a lane between two hedgerows at 60 kilometers an hour. But the Ukrainians had already rolled Spike 2 into a pinch point in that dirt road hours earlier. Its payload? A directional mine packing 2,000 steel fragments. It detonates and instantly shuts down the entire flank. The surviving riders just ditch their bikes and start crawling away on their bellies.
All right, that brings us to Section 3, blinding the robots.
Completely out of armor, and with his infantry pinned down across 450 meters of open field, the Russian commander makes a pretty desperate tactical pivot. The Russians set up a Kornet missile team, which is this massive 60-pound tank killer. But a cheap, off-the-shelf Ukrainian DJI Mavic drone spots the launch flash. The Hornet operator instantly throws the droid into reverse, sliding into cover, and the missile harmlessly plows into an empty hedgerow. But the Russian commander, watching his own drone feed, notices something absolutely crucial during that split-second reverse. He spots the flat glass face of the robot's thermal optic housing. He cracks the code. He launches 2 fiber optic drones of his own, not at the armored chassis, but directly at the vulnerable sensor clusters of Hornets 1 and 3. The optics shatter, suddenly leaving 2 droids fighting half-blind.
But then comes the counterpunch. 55 seconds. That is the exact flight time of an incoming Russian Lancet loitering munition. It's basically a camera drone carrying a 3-kilo shaped charge, hunting for a heat signature, and it locks right onto Hornet 1. But just 6 seconds into its dive, a Ukrainian Wasp drone intercepts it midair at 300 meters altitude. Both of them just vanish in a dirty yellow flash.
Let's move into Section 4, the robotic counterattack.
So, the Russian commander gives the only order he has left, withdrawal. But half a mile back in their bunker, the Ukrainian operators are looking at their green status bars, and they don't want to stop. Kovalenko keys the command channel. All platforms, push up. The ground drones roll 600 meters forward through a heavily cratered no-man's land, heading directly toward the Russian forward trench. Now, a trench is fundamentally anti-robot terrain, right? It's deep, it's narrow, and a Hornet's turret physically cannot aim down into the bottom of it. A Russian machine gun team could easily blind a robot from below. So how do you solve that? Well, you don't clear a trench with a Hornet, you clear it with a breacher. Spike 3 rolls out, packing 21 kilograms of TNT, moving completely silently down the communications trench. It rounds a corner right into a Russian PKM machine gun team, bounces a few bullets off its armored shell, and detonates. It instantly clears the path, allowing the Hornets to just roll right up to the crater and fire straight down the trench line.
But just as the robots are totally dominating, Russian artillery finds its mark. A 152mm shell lands exactly 12 meters from the Ukrainian rally point. The blast wave completely throws the bunker's security element into a ditch and shreds their critical rearm rig. And then, the very next round hits the supply drone, Mule 1, which was carrying a full load of ammo belts and, crucially, charged batteries.
This catastrophic hit reveals a highly tense data point, the droid battery levels. We're looking at 17%, 9%, and 6%. You know, despite all this cutting-edge, invincible AI technology, these robots suffer from the exact same military flaw the ancient Romans did, a super fragile logistics supply chain. The sword arm moved faster than the grocery run. Now the logistics loop is broken, and a Russian Quick Reaction Force, a QRF, is inbound.
Which brings us to our final part, Section 5, surrender to the machines.
So, the bunker operators decide to push their final spike drone, Spike 4, straight into the Russian company's rear command dugout. It parks right at the firing slit and detonates 21 kilos of TNT. Dugout destroyed. At 06:33, the Russian Quick Reaction Force of 24 men arrives in armored vehicles. The Ukrainian Wasps immediately disable the QRF's armor, which forces the Russian reinforcements to crawl out into a ditch. When they finally push toward the trench, they are met by Hornet 2. Now, it's sitting at just 6% battery, but it's using the Russian overhead cover and laying down just perfect waist-height .50 caliber fire. The QRF commander does the math here. He has 0 armor, 0 artillery support, no radio to command, and he's pinned down by machines that do not sleep, they do not miss, and they simply do not care how many friends he brought to the fight. With literally no other options, his radio operator rips the side off an ammo crate, writes on it with a grease pencil, and holds it up to the drone lingering 400 feet above. As captured in the source material, the terrifying message simply reads, "Muas diosa, always surrender." It is an absolutely chilling climax to an unbelievable engagement. And it leaves us with this final, really important thought. As cheap, fearless machines completely replace soldiers on the front lines, who truly dictates the future of war? I mean, is it the flawless AI making 400 micro-adjustments a second to pull the trigger? Or is it the fragile, highly vulnerable battery pack that actually keeps it alive? It's a raw, totally fascinating reality of modern drone warfare, and it is rewriting military doctrine in real time. Thank you so much for joining me on this explainer. I really hope this helped you map out the incredible complexities of the Ghost Trench. Keep questioning, keep learning, and I'll catch you on the next one.